In one workshop, when I was trying to describe this concept, the phrase that popped out as an attempt to describe it was reflexive vectors of orientation. And I'd like to talk you through my own experience of that and what that means for me. And that will give a clear indication of practically what we will be doing in the workshop that's coming up in September. Just a brief definition. Reflexive, the meaning there is below consciousness, something that we do without necessarily thinking about it. So a very early organizing factor in the body, reflexive. Vector, force with direction, some form of movement or force with a direction attached to that. And orientation is spatial orientation. So it has to do with my direct anatomical orientation to space. In other words, how I shape myself has to do with an active relationship that I'm performing on the space around me. If I go back to my own body and sensing my own body right now, and maybe we can all do that to see if we can participate in the experience as I explain it. The place that even now and historically has come back to me and again, the first place for me that is not resting, that I sense where there is some activity taking place. Just notice in your own body and those listening, if you find a place like that, if there's a place that comes to your foreground of your perception that is not resting at the moment, that is performing some kind of action, and I'm going to anatomically point. So for me, that is the left head of the humerus. My left left head of the humerus has got an interesting history, and it's actively engaged with that history. Lots of things happened. One of them was somebody threw something at me that impacted me there, and hence I became aware that it was active. It was not resting in space. When I went deeper into what is active, what is the nature of that activity, I realized that the head of my left humerus is lifting up slightly and orienting anteriorly. Okay, so if we talk about anatomically what is happening there, then the long head of my tricep is active, pulling the humerus superiorly. The posterior deltoid is active, helping with that action, and both of them together also orients the head of the humerus anteriorly and slightly, possibly medially. Okay, so there's a very precise action, and that action can be described anatomically like I did, but it can also be described in terms of the action of my anatomy on space. In this case, a directional pointing into space without me consciously being aware of it, consciously acting it. So that is part of the shape that I assume. That is part of my postural coordination, my long-term postural coordination. And my thesis is that that any form that I see, that we see in our clients or in ourselves, any form that we see, any position, whether it's internal rotation or external rotation, whether it's kyphosis, lordosis, any of that has also to do with a direct acting on space. Okay, it's not only an anatomical pull or holding in relation to other anatomical structures, but it is an actual acting on space.